the double switch, or retreat and then switch, or, I don't know, moving an active out of the active spot into the active spot. Welcome to Jank Play TCG. My name is Landon, and here we play Jank. And today, I'm going to be talking about the double switch, moving a Pokemon from the active spot to the bench to the active spot. Why do players do this? What benefit can it have? Is there a reason? Blah, 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 all that stuff. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So, to be clear, when I'm talking about that double switch, it's usually for a purpose other than just playing cards out of my hand. Something like a Mew deck very well might play multiple switches in a hand, or in a turn, just to use Genesect to draw more cards. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the reason why a Pokemon would want to move out of the active and back into the active in the same turn. Now, to go in a little bit deeper, why to move a Pokemon to the bench? Well, something happens when you move a Pokemon to the bench. It loses all effects. Any effect that was on it in the active is removed when it moves to the bench. Now, these are particular effects. So, something along the lines of something that targets the Pokemon that has stayed on the Pokemon. So like a status condition, a poison, a paralyze, a confusion, sleep, burn. Those things heal when you move on to the bench. However, other effects also heal. Many Pokemon have an attack that you can't use this the following turn, or you can't attack on your next turn, that sort of deal. That is an effect placed on that Pokemon. And that is actually the effect that is most commonly used with the double switch. You attack with a big attack with the effect that you can't attack next turn. We get it. That's the massive downside to that. Zacian V comes to mind. Here, let me jump into PTCGL because I have it open. And let's go ahead and see Zacian V here, right? Zacian V. The amazing Brave Blade attack here. During your turn, this Pokemon can't attack. Or during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. So that is an effect placed onto Zacian. And one of the most popular ways to work around that is having a Pokemon with, say, Air Balloon, so it gains free retreat, and you use a switch card to switch into that Pokemon, then you retreat back into the same Zacian. It's weird that the Zacian can then attack, but that's because all effects are eliminated once you move to the bench and then back into the active. Now, there are certain effects that affect the entire board, affect your benched Pokemon, those sorts of things. It depends on how the effect is worded. But this, you use the attack Brave Blade, you do 230 damage, which is still quite a bit of damage, and then during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. That is an effect placed on it. And it lasts, basically until the end of your next turn, because this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. However, moving to the bench and then moving to the active clears up that effect. But then you have some other cards. Some might say weirder cards. Cinderace VMAX, I believe, is the Pokemon. Yes, for 2 energy, if this Pokemon was damaged by an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does that much more damage. Great! But if you switch out of the active and then back into it, does the card remember that? In fact, it actually does. This actually messed me up quite a lot when I was learning the Pokemon TCG. I had a lot of people and YouTubers and everyone in the TCG talk about how retreating out of the active and then going back into the active, basically the game treated it as a new Pokemon when it went back into the active. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why there's no status conditions, all that stuff. And that was fine for a while until I started interacting with these types of attacks. And I was like, wait, so if you switch out of the active and then back into it, it counts as a new Pokemon. So it wouldn't remember what happened, right? And it really came up with a trainer card Now I'm going to have to go into expanded for this. If we go all expanded, I believe it was Guzman and Hala tag team from the Sun and Moon era. But was it this one? No, it was Mala and Lana. Sorry, Mallow and Lana. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. When you play this card, you may discard 2 other cards from your hand. If you do, heal 120 damage from the Pokemon you move to your bench. And this was a very popular strategy. And then when Cinderace VMAX came out in Rebel Clash, these 2 cards were in the format for like a year together. Was it longer than a year? It might have been longer than a year. I don't know. They were together in the format, and it actually was kind of a strategy where you have a giant VMAX Pokemon that can't be one-hit KO'd unless you're being hit by weakness, that will heal a ton of damage. And 120 damage is a ton of damage. It's, you know, we have other healing now too, but 120 I still think is a lot of damage. And then so you'd switch to the bench and you'd heal 120 damage, and then find a way to get back into the active, usually with an air balloon for a Pokemon to have free retreat. And you retreat back into Cinderace, who's healed all this damage, and then you attack again. And it remembers how much damage it took. And it always threw me off because, like I said, everyone described it as once a Pokemon goes onto the bench and then goes into the active, it's treated as a new Pokemon. And that's just false. That's not what's happening. And I want to help people understand this. That's not what's happening. What's happening is going onto the bench, going back into the Pokeball, basically. That is what the bench is trying to, you know, recreate from the video game series. Is going back into the Pokeball. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a professional, you know, I'm not like a pro at video game stuff. I play it because fun colors and I get to press buttons and they attack and it's fun. Oh man, what a diss to myself. I'm pretty sure when you're in combat, you can have stats effects that change your stats, basically what your attack number is, which will change how hard your attacks hit. What your defense is will change how much damage you're taking from attacks. And then there's special attacks, special defense are the same thing, but for special attacks and whatnot. In speed and whatnot, those can be changed through attacks, like growl, tail wag, you know, those early attacks that no one ever uses. They lower your attack and defense. And going back into the Pokeball, switching to a different Pokemon, then you can switch back and those status effects are gone. Now, you're still poisoned and paralyzed and whatnot in the video games, but in the TCG, that heals all effects. So it heals your poisoned, confused status conditions. It heals your can't attack next turn. But it also does some other things where, like, it doesn't remove knowing how much damage the Pokemon took last time, right? I'm trying to think. Another Pokemon. What is that Pokemon's name? Golisopod. There we go. Golisopod GX. For a single grass energy, first impression, 30 damage, plus if this Pokemon was on the bench and became your active Pokemon this turn, this attack does 90 more damage. Now this isn't an effect. There's no effect being placed on your Pokemon during this. All that's happening is if it was on the bench at any time on your turn, if it was on the bench, not on the bench at the start of your turn or something like that where it has to remember, it's just was on your bench at any point during this turn. It was. Now it's your active and you're using the stack. It does 90 more. So that's another reason for the double switch, that type of effect. Man, I was on one train of thought. I jumped onto another train of thought and I forgot this first train of thought. But, you know, those are the reasons for the double switch. That is how the double switch can actually be quite beneficial for you. You might have attacks like Golisopod that get more powerful when you are on the bench and you go into the active, so double switching into Golisopod, you switch out of it and switch back in, allows Golisopod to hit a lot of damage. That's a fantastic reason for the double switch. Can't attack next turn, like the Zacian V that we've already looked at. That is, again, another great reason for the double switch. The Malon healing strategy is a great reason for the double switch, because you need to heal that damage from the Cinderace so that it has a higher chance of surviving the next turn, because Cinderace only works on itself. There's another card, is it? No, it's a Zebstrika, not a Blitzel. It's a Zebstrika. Zebstrika, Rapid Strike. There we go. If one of your other Rapid Strike Pokemon used an attack during your last turn, this attack does 90 more damage. Very similar to Golisopod that we just looked at. 30 plus 90. Perfect. But this card actually does not work on the double switch. It's a very interesting idea, but it's one of your other Rapid Strike Pokemon. So because the double switch is not a new Pokemon going into the active, it's not treated as a new Pokemon, the double switch with Zebstrika does not function. At least last time I checked, it doesn't function. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this one. This one is the one I'm the most shaky of, but it states if one of your other Rapid Strike Pokemon, so not this Zebstrika. It could be another Zebstrika, but it can't be this Zebstrika that just retreats and then goes back into the active sort of business. So it's another one of those interesting conversations, similar to the damage counters that I was talking about Saturday. It's another one of those interesting situations where this is how we generally do things, but it's not generally how it works, at least according to the language. The Zacian not being able to attack the following turn, retreating to the bench and going back in, it should still not be able to attack on that turn, but it can, because retreating to the bench cures its effects, any effects that are left on it. Zebstrika is not an effect left on it. It's just remembering, was this the Rapid Strike Pokemon that attacked last turn? Yes, it was. It will not get the extra 90. It needs to be a different Rapid Strike Pokemon. Could be a Zebstrika, but not this Zebstrika. So I hope this was an interesting look at the double switch mechanic that a lot of really good players have mastered in their time with the Pokemon TCG. And a lot of deck builders need to keep in mind when they are looking at these powerful attacks. Actually, I've got one more. I've got one more to show you, because it's in the deck I'm currently playing this week. The Lost Swords of Justice deck, Terrakion. Terrakion, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon. Beautiful. Awesome attack. If one of your Pokemon used Cavern Tackle during your last turn, this attack can't be used. That is a strange effect, but very similar to the Zebstrika. Something that a double switch does not get you out of. You are still not able to use Cavern Tackle, if you used it last turn. It doesn't even matter if a different Pokemon used that attack. Any Pokemon that used that attack, an attack named that, cannot use this attack. Terrakion cannot use this attack if that attack was used the previous turn. So, again, there we go. So again, let me get back to the outro. This is something that a lot of skilled players have mastered over their time with the game, and deck builders need to be aware of this interaction so that they are able to take these attacks that originally you look at and it's like, oh, you can't attack next turn, so next turn I'm just wide open for an attack and there's nothing I can do about it, and they can just two-hit me and I can't do anything about that. Like, that's terrible. Yes, that is. Until you understand the reason of the double switch. And again, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it sparked something in you to make you rethink a certain Pokemon or attack. And, maybe you'll build a new deck and build something amazing with this knowledge. Maybe, hopefully, I don't know. Build something janky. Show it to me. I would love to see it. So thank you for watching this video. Please like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you are enjoying what I do here. Once we hit 100 subscribers, I'm going to be opening up the Discord for public use. Currently, it's just me in there, very lonely. So let's get to 100 subscribers, get some other people in there, talk jank. I'm probably going to post like previews of decks I'm working on, so you might see some deck lists posted from me that are just outright ridiculous. Like next week's deck is probably going to be the stupidest deck I've ever built, and I'm all here for it. I doubt it'll be any good, but hopefully we can get some wins with it. But yeah, if we had the Discord, I would post that list to you guys for, you know, some help in making it work a little bit better. But yeah, so 100 subscribers, Discord, early deck lists, possibly. I don't know. I'm not promising that. I'm just saying it will probably happen. You know, yeah. And of course, until next time, keep playing Jank. Bye.